While the camera crew was getting what we call a wide shot of Ruzizi Bridge, a place where 5,000 Hutu refugees wait to cross from Rwanda to Zaire, I got my first taste of refugee life. Hungry Hutu children asked me for food. I gave them some bananas. I know we're supposed to stay journalistically detached from the story, but as I got here and some of the young children came up to me and just looked at me, it was just breaking my heart. You know, they'd rub their stomachs and indicate number of days, I guess, since they'd eaten. So I just, you know, we had a lot of bananas back there and just decided to give them out. And, you know, they seem pretty happy when you hand them to them. I then walked through the hordes of refugees. People were just camped out on the roadside, waiting to get out of Rwanda. I saw a baby crying. I continued my walk. It was my first look at a refugee camp. But this isn't just any refugee camp. These people are trying to escape one of the bloodiest human conflicts ever. You can see the horror in their eyes, like this man. I kept walking, and I was glad to see that some people had food. Border crossings like this one between Rwanda and Zaire have been the scenes of violence and mayhem, and it's understandable. Sick, tired, scared Hutu, desperate to escape Rwanda, don't really feel like waiting around. For the time being, this refugee flow, it's going pretty smoothly. Well, not that smoothly. The troops from Zaire shoved the refugees, yelled at them. The troops even yelled at each other. The Zairean troops aren't paid by their government. Relief workers told me some troops have robbed refugees. That's why Red Cross officials keep an eye on both the refugees and troops. Many of the refugees have walked for miles to get here. Some are barefoot. Imagine carrying everything you own on your head. Some Hutu refugees have nothing. Others are lucky enough to have bicycles. I tried to talk to some of the younger refugees, but they were either scared of me or the Zairean soldiers, or both. After leaving a bloody Rwanda, getting abused by the Zairean troops, and crossing Ruzizi Bridge, relief workers load the refugees onto trucks bound for camps in Zaire. The relief agency workers are a lot more humane than the Zairean troops. This truck pulled away with Hutu refugees happy to leave Rwanda and happy to leave Ruzizi Bridge. Just about everywhere I drove around Rwanda's capital of Kigali, I saw signs of the bloody civil war between Hutu and Tutsi forces. The battle for Kigali was fierce. It literally was hand-to-hand, storefront to storefront, block to block. I'm standing in front of what was once a popular hotel restaurant, and you can see it's riddled with bullet holes, broken glass, and when we were shooting this, a restaurant patron came out and said that some people had been killed here. There's an old rule in combat. Whoever controls the airport controls the country. So Kigali International Airport saw some of the heaviest fighting. The Tutsi rebels took the airport and eventually won the war.
That's the big downtown area.
Captain Ryan Yantis was one of the first U.S. troops to arrive here after the Civil War. The U.S. troops' mission? Make the airport functional again so starving Rwandans could receive food and medicine.
When the U.S. troops first arrived, this airport had been a battle zone, and there had been some pretty fierce fighting starting as early as April 7th. There's mortar damage to the buildings, there's mortar damage, explosives damage to the runway and to the ramp where we parked the aircraft. There were unexploded munitions and mines scattered everywhere. The terminal building was pretty much gutted.
First, U.S. troops cleared explosives from the runway to make it safe for aircraft. Then, they rebuilt the control tower to handle more than 30 planes a day. There was also the grisly task of removing dead Hutu and Tutsi soldiers from inside the terminal. Cargo planes from the U.S., Russia, Germany, and the United Nations bring food and medicine to Rwanda 24 hours a day. Over 20 million pounds of supplies have been delivered. Servicemen can now relax in the terminal and watch tapes of pre-season NFL games. For Army Private Sean Gibbs, a former Channel 1 student from Jessup High in Jessup, Iowa, rebuilding Kigali International has been rewarding.
I feel good that we're helping these people get back on their feet. I just wish they would avoid these ethnic conflicts all the time. But if they can get back on their feet and we're helping that, then that's a good thing.
Captain Yench's mission in Rwanda was over the day I caught up with him. His replacement had arrived, and he was going back to the States. He'll never forget what he saw in the refugee camps.
Pretty much a lot of things I had seen in Goma and in the refugee camps was outrageous. You know, there's how hostile life was, how harsh the living conditions were.
Airman Monica Gatt unloads the cargo planes. What's your appraisal of the situation in Rwanda?
It's pretty bad. It's nasty. I think we really shouldn't be here. We should be getting out of here. The reason we're here, we got our mission done. We fed the people. We stopped the dying, and now it's time to go home.
As President Bill Clinton and other APEC leaders whiz through Jakarta, they see skyscrapers glistening in the sun and streets swept clean of dirt. They see a country whose economy is booming, and that's exactly what the Indonesian government wants.
The Indonesian government is trying to put its best face forward. Normally, these streets would be clogged with traffic and street vendors, but they declared a national holiday, so you won't see much traffic and you won't see many people.
For the delegates from 18 countries, APEC is a way to figure out how to improve trade in Asia, and for Indonesia, it's a way to show itself off. The Indonesian government wants to make it easy for foreign reporters to get their message out, so they've thought of everything: dozens of phones, air-conditioned places to work, even free water. But to find ordinary Indonesians, you don't have to go too far from the high-rises of downtown Jakarta.
But what the Indonesian government doesn't want you to see are places like this, a slum community called Palmera, where Indonesia's poor live in conditions that have changed little in generations.
Food is prepared by hand. There's no running water, little electricity. Kids play next to open sewers. It's these people who provide the cheap manual labor needed to fuel Asia's booming economic growth.
Critics say that while Asian economies are booming, the people who are fueling that boom, the people who provide the cheap manual labor, aren't really reaping the benefits of the economic growth of Asia.
And while many of the APEC leaders will say that as a developing country's economy grows, so too will the standard of living for all its people. But ordinary Indonesians will tell you there are two kinds of people here in Indonesia: rich or poor. And while the rich will always get richer, the poor will always stay in places like Palmera. These are the photo opportunities leaders love. President Bill Clinton posing with the other APEC leaders before beginning talks on boosting free trade in Asia. This is the way it was all supposed to be. Bill Clinton came to Indonesia wanting to talk about creating jobs for Americans. But because this is Indonesia, he ended up having to talk about human rights instead.
The APEC conference is here in Indonesia, a country with a booming economy, rich in oil and exports, a country which calls itself a democracy. But human rights activists say that Indonesia's record on human rights is terrible.
The police and military are feared by many Indonesians. Freedom of the press is limited. Magazines and newspapers can't be too critical of the government. Tempo magazine was. Now it's been shut down. Indonesia's leaders had hoped that human rights wouldn't become an issue here, but its hopes were dashed when more than 20 student demonstrators jumped the gates at the U.S. Embassy. They were protesting what they say are Indonesian human rights abuses on an island called East Timor, one of the many islands that make up Indonesia. For Indonesia, it was a public relations disaster, especially when police beat one of the demonstrators in full view of TV cameras.
For days now, the students from East Timor have been holed up inside the U.S. Embassy compound. They're afraid to leave the grounds. The incident highlights one of the problems the U.S. faces in trying to do business with developing countries in Asia. The U.S. doesn't want to miss out on lucrative business deals here, but it also doesn't want to be seen as doing business with repressive governments.
For Asian leaders, these students and their talk of human rights have been an embarrassment, one that threatened to overshadow their economic conference. for the U.S., they've been another example of the difficulties of doing business in Asia, a region which investors say is rich in economic potential, but one which critics say has a long way to go in terms of respecting human rights. We started for Bosnia around 3 a.m., driving through Croatia in the dark. Reporting on war is risky, so we hired Teo, an experienced driver, and an armored Land Rover. By first light, we had reached Bosnia.
This is Bosnia.
We just crossed the border into Bosnia, and the change is dramatic. Everywhere you see signs of this war. Bosnia itself has been split up along ethnic lines. Bosnian Serbs control about 70% of the territory. Bosnian Muslims and Croats control the rest. This is a Croatian territory right now, and to get to Sarajevo, we can only go through Croat and Muslim checkpoints. That's because Teo, our driver, is Croatian, and there's no way he could go through a Serb checkpoint.
I don't like Serb. Why? Serbs killed very much people, very much newspaper, cameramans, men, drivers, umprofor men, women, children.
But the situation in Bosnia is not that simple. This is war, and there are atrocities committed by both sides. Regular life as we know it has been destroyed in Bosnia.
As you drive deeper into Bosnia and get closer to Sarajevo, the tragedy of this war begins to come home. This land is so beautiful, incredible mountains, yet no place you look has been untouched by war.
Buildings stand empty, mosques and churches destroyed. This church was built in 1912, but now this is all that remains. After I took this shot and turned the camera off, an artillery shell exploded nearby.
There was just a huge explosion while we were inside the church. So we're just going to get back in the vehicle and keep going to Sarajevo.
In the past few weeks, the role of UN peacekeepers in Bosnia has been tested like never before. Morale among the peacekeepers is low.
The Serbs are on the advance throughout Bosnia right now. That's what's causing a lot of this crisis. They're attacking in northwestern Bosnia, but also they're attacking the UN personnel. They've held several hundred UN peacekeepers hostage, and they're not allowing food convoys to get to the needy in Sarajevo.
With Serbs all around, the final few miles to Sarajevo are the most dangerous.
Now I must drive very quick.
This is the area that's the most dangerous?
Yeah.
The Serbs are over there? Oh, the Serb houses, yeah.
This is for sure.
I see. They built this wall here to try to stop you from being shot by snipers.
Serb snipers pick off cars trying to break the Serb stranglehold on Sarajevo.
You see this car, which is broken before 10 days.
That was shot 10 days ago?
Yeah.
After a 12-hour drive and making it through the final gauntlet, we arrived in Sarajevo.
I must drive 50 meters and I took you welcome in Sarajevo.
After nearly 3 years of bitter fighting, Bosnia and its capital Sarajevo continue to limp along, down but not out. The UN has run a massive humanitarian relief operation, keeping Bosnia and its people alive.
But in the past 2 weeks, Sarajevo has been effectively cut off. Its airport, where about 80% of the food for Sarajevo has been flown in, has been shut down. The Serbs have moved anti-aircraft weaponry nearby. That means no planes can come in. And for Sarajevo, no planes means no food.
At the airport, I met Sir General Michael Rose, the commander of the beleaguered UN peacekeepers in Bosnia. He was concerned but optimistic.
We've been through these difficult times before. Fortunately, we did have a good period for stocking up in Sarajevo the previous month. And so, although things are difficult, they're not critical yet.
How much food does Sarajevo have left?
Well, I think it's got about 14 days left from what I understand.
You can find some food in the marketplace here in Sarajevo. It's smuggled in from other parts of Bosnia, but it's very expensive and most Sarajevans can't afford it. The marketplace is even a target for attacks from bombers. Even though it's filled with civilians, it has been hit by mortars in the past.
Food and politics were on the minds of many I spoke with in the market.
Ne znam da su Srbi.
Conditions here are terrible, this woman complained, but the Serbs aren't the only ones to blame, she said.
Dovoljan razlog
The Serbs are the cause of everything, another woman told me.
Does she hate Serbs?
My husband was a Serb, she told me. The problem is not people, she said, it's politics. Throughout the history of this land, politics has often led to conflict that has been passed from one generation to the next.